占い師さん、私これからどうしたらいいの？
時に人はその 1% の希望さえ見失いそうになるほど深い絶望に襲われることがある。そんな時は生徒ウェンデルの光の神殿を訪れるとよい。
光の神殿？
暗闇で迷ってしまった時は道を照らしてくれる光が必要じゃ。ウェンデルに向かえ。
ダメだこのばあさん。俺にもウェンデルがどうとかって全く同じこと言ったよ。今度生まれるうちの子が男の子か女の子か占ってもらおうと思ったのにさ。
生徒ウェンデルか。そこで何が待っているのかわからない。でもこのままここにいるわけにはいかない。行ってみよう。きっと今よりマシなはずよ。魔法が使えるようになればきっといつかお母様も私を認めてくれる。必ず。
母の愛を受けられず苦しむアンジェラ。忍び寄る暗殺者の影に怯えながら国を後にする。
Hello everybody and welcome to this video in which we are going to be talking about a remake that is not Final Fantasy VII Remake. It comes from Square Enix and it is a classic JRPG that has been completely remade, but yeah, for whatever reason Square Enix has decided to release two of these things in a very short span of one another. Everybody knows about Final Fantasy VII Remake, of course. It's been on the top of everybody's minds for the last couple of weeks. There are so many articles, videos, whatever about that game out there, and that's a good thing. It's a very good game, deserves to be talked about a lot, and that's yeah, great for them. I'm really glad that they managed to pull that one out because I was very concerned going in, and I was very happy with the results. This one I was also very concerned about. This is Trails of Mana. Now, if you don't know much about the Mana series, Trails of Mana was originally a Super Nintendo title, which was released in Japan only, while Secret of Mana was popular enough around the world. For whatever reason, Square Enix decided to take the next game in that series and not localize it. So for the longest time, you've not been able to play an official version of this game. That changed last year, where there was the Collection of Mana that was released on the Nintendo Switch, which had the first official localization of this game, which was an exact port of the Super NES title. So it wasn't a remake, it was just a localization of a classic game, and that was the first time I had a chance to play it. I was very impressed. Secret of Mana is actually one of my favourite games of all time, and this game, Trails of Mana, really was a good follow-on to that. Where my concern came in was that there was a remake of Secret of Mana that was released about 2 years ago, which was just called Secret of Mana, and it's terrible. It is an absolutely terrible game. They've taken pretty much everything I loved about the original Secret of Mana and somehow managed to ruin it. So I was very disappointed with that, and when I saw that they were also doing a remake of Trails of Mana at the same time that Collection of Mana came out, I saw the initial screenshots of this thing and I thought, uh-oh, are they going to do exactly what they did with Secret of Mana all over again and ruin a game that I've just discovered that I really like? The good news is they haven't. They've really delivered on this one. This is an amazing remake, and while it is a more, I guess, kind of traditional remake than Final Fantasy VII Remake, which, if you pay attention to the conversations, is quite controversial because they have changed a lot about that game and it is a re-envisioning of the classic. This one is pretty much a point-for-point remake of the classic game, just with a 3D engine and so on. So I think traditionalists will find this one really appealing. If you grew up with the Super NES and Secret of Mana and stuff, you're going to love this game. I don't think it's going to be anywhere near as high profile as Final Fantasy VII Remake, for obvious reasons. It's not the same kind of profile as the original game, and it's, you know, more anime in tone. But I think that people really should check this one out. It's quite beautiful. So if you haven't had too much experience with the Mana series before, there are a couple of things that are common to most of the games in the title. One is an interest and core theme around the idea of environmentalism, where you are fighting to preserve the world against forces that are looking to exploit it. In a funny way, it's actually a little bit similar to Final Fantasy VII, in that there are people out there that are looking to kind of drain the world of its essence, its mana, which is, you know, Mako in Final Fantasy VII, and your job is to kind of fight back against that, push back against that by allying yourself with the forces of nature, going on this great quest to accumulate the power from a draining world that you need to really push back against the forces of darkness. These games don't have the same narrative depth as a Final Fantasy or even a Dragon Quest. They're much more focused about kind of the moment-to-moment gameplay, but that is a theme that is very pertinent, and, you know, the more games that kind of cover it and encourage people to think about the way that the world is and, you know, the need to preserve it, the better. So this game definitely covers over those themes. The other common element to the Mana series is that they are action rather than turn-based. A lot of Super Nintendo JRPGs at the time were fundamentally turn-based games, but these ones were pure action and work a little bit like a primitive Diablo, if you want to think about it in that way. If you play this remake, you've got a weak attack, you've got a strong attack, you've got a dodge ability, and then there's a menu system for using items and special abilities and spells and stuff. And the basic gameplay is to dodge out of the way of the enemy big attacks, and you can see on the screen right there in front of you, it's like a kind of an MMO indicator of where the enemy's big attacks are going to come from. You want to dodge out of the way there, you want to hit them back. And then you can use, you know, a special ability here and there if you're fighting a particularly tough enemy. But that's really kind of that's something you only really need in the boss battles. This game's not too difficult if you're used to action combat systems. But it is a good system, and even though this game is 3D and fully kind of, you know, it is a fully 3D game, it does very much feel like the previous Mana titles. The developers have done a really good job of encapsulating what people enjoyed about the combat system from the Mana series into that third dimension, which has not always been the case with this series. One of the reasons a lot of people haven't heard about Mana games or played them is that after the Super Nintendo, this series dropped off quite significantly, and it's taken a while for Square Enix to find a new groove for it. This is perhaps a new start for the series, and they can go from here and perhaps look at creating a new Mana title, which I know a lot of fans have really wanted. The third element, which you may have noticed from the combat that you've seen so far, is that the Mana series has really cute enemies. It's a very colourful game, even though it has some serious notes to the narrative. For the most part, it's quite bright and cheerful in terms of its presentation. The enemies are, they pitch at the same kind of spot as Dragon Quest enemies. They're kind of cute rather than menacing. They've got little quirky mannerisms, and they're quite entertaining to fight. That continues throughout the entire game. What you're seeing on the screen as I play this is just the first dungeon and kind of chapter. I didn't want to spoil anything, of course, and one of the things that is great about this game in particular is the kind of joy of discovery with each new environment, because there's this really, it has this X factor about the kind of the level design that really makes you want to explore and see it all as you go along. So I didn't want to ruin any of that while I was playing, so I've really kept what I'm showing in this video to the early parts of the game. And it's not just the enemies that are well designed, the characters are really great as well. One of the really cool things about Trials of Mana is that there are 8 different heroes you can choose from, and each one, when you pick your hero, has their own little introductory chapter which tells their backstory and gets you into the game. It's only short, it's about 15-20 minutes long, but each character has their own unique start to the story. On top of that, you then also choose 2 other characters from that list of 8, and they become your companions later on through the adventure. I've already met one of them here, and later on I will meet the 3rd one, so that you're having 3 in your combat party at any time. And like I said, you do get to choose those, so you really get to customize your experience and which characters you take into battle. But it doesn't really matter in the sense that all 8 characters are interesting, have good stories, have good personalities, and are written quite well. For obvious reasons, I picked Angela because, well, let's just say she's the most fan-servicey of the lot of them. If you get a look at the costume, she's wearing like a leotard thing, which is strapless, and it's kind of falling down. And some of the cutscenes in this thing really go places. I can't believe that Square Enix actually let that out the door, because Square Enix, you know, it's a Japanese JRPG producer, but it hasn't ever been known for its fan service. This Angela character and her design in this game is very fan service, which is great. There we go. Which is great, you know. It's always good to have a bit of fan service, and it certainly fits with the character design from the Super NES thing. But I just didn't expect them to go as far as they did with this. But like I introed earlier in the video, what I really loved about this game is just how traditional it does play it. So I really enjoyed Final Fantasy VII Remake because it did such great things with taking the base narrative from the original Final Fantasy and creating its own identity, so that while they're both Final Fantasy VII, they are their own unique take. What I liked about this one is the contrast. This is what happens when you have a talented team of developers have a base material that they wanted to modernize, but without kind of adjusting. So every town that you play, if you were to pick up Collection of Mana on the Switch, for example, and you were to play the original Trials of Mana, every town that you go to, you can then see rendered in 3D on this game. And it's a little bit like how that Dragon Quest XI did such an effective job of giving you kind of the 2D sprite thing on the Switch, I mean, and then the option to play it in 3D, so you can actually see the contrast about how the developers look at the world and how the world looks differently based on the engine used. And it always reminds me, a couple of years ago I was in Japan and I went along to a special, I think it was the 35th, it was some kind of anniversary exhibition for Dragon Quest that they had going on, and in that exhibition they had these massive paintings where they actually showed the artist's impression of a particular scene within one of the early Dragon Quest games, and then next to that they showed how it looked on the NES in all its spritey glory. And having that contrast was just fascinating. You know, how an artist takes kind of a really epic scene and then makes it work on a console that isn't necessarily particularly powerful to render that is such an interesting creative process, and I found it fascinating just comparing them and just imagining, you know, how you could look at a painting and then look at a scene and reduce it down to that. This is kind of the opposite, but having these, being able to play the Super NES original and then imagine how the developers looked at the world through a different lens to create this 3D world to explore, with all of the changes in perspective that comes with that, is really fascinating. And that's perhaps where I got the most value out of playing this, is that I was able to directly compare it to the original, and yeah, it's just such an amazing creative process. But anyway, this game is out now. Go and grab it and enjoy it if you're not already drained on JRPGs thanks to Final Fantasy VII Remake. It's certainly worth it. I've got a review going up on digitally-downloaded.net that you can check out as well. It's going to be very positive. And otherwise, thanks as always for watching. Please do like and subscribe if you enjoy my videos. That way you don't miss any of them. Please do consider backing me on Patreon, because that really helps me to ramp up what I'm doing. And speaking of ramping up what I'm doing, I am going to start doing streams of particular games. I will create a schedule so you'll be able to see when I'm going to be doing it live. But otherwise, just kind of watch the replays if you enjoy that stuff. I'm going to be playing some interesting quirky games, I'm sure, and it'll be great to have you on to watch and chat with as I play. Thanks as always for watching. We will see you at the next video.